Hello, welcome to Building Brand Advocacy from the Cannes Lion Festival. I'm incredibly excited to be joined here by Samantha Critchell from e.l.f. Beauty, one of my favourite brands in the world. Samantha, can you just give us a little intro to who you are and how you fit into the mix? And obviously for anyone who is under a rock, who e.l.f. Beauty is.
Happy to. I am Samantha Critchell. I lead communications and impact work at e.l.f. Beauty. I am a 3-year e.l.f. That is what we call ourselves. We are the elves, and we are here at Cannes to learn and to fill our cup and to spread the word of what we're going to talk about today, which is the power of advocacy.
I love that. And actually, so we did a study on the Advocacy Maturity Score. We were just chatting before we went on air, and basically we've scored 1,500, almost 2,000 brands now on the maturity of their systems around advocacy. Are they purpose-led? Are they clear about who they are and their community? And e.l.f. Beauty scored up there with the very top 1% of people we looked at. So you're definitely doing something right. Can you just give me a little bit of an overview about how the philosophy of e.l.f. and community kind of came about and how that kind of works day to day?
So as a practical business lever first, it is we run fast. We work at e.l.f. speed, and the idea is to deliver what our community wants when they want it. And the only way to do that is now a practice that we call zero distance. It's a philosophy that's been built into the organization for probably its 22 years, but we're really codifying it as part of our culture, as part of our business plan. We want to hear from the community, and we react, and then we come back to them and look for feedback. It is a very feedback-oriented culture, both in the workplace side, with our community, and no secrets. There's nothing you can't say. We want good, bad, ugly, and that just actually helps us all get better.
That's incredible. It's so easy to say, but so hard to do. And I think everybody can hear this and say, oh yeah, of course you can do that, but I wouldn't be allowed to do this. I couldn't do that in my business. I couldn't get over the line. What is it that means that you guys are able to do it so effectively?
I think we take it all. The engagement is the win. And knowing that we are talking to our community and they're directing us, kind of co-creating the brand with us, it actually helps ensure that we're delivering a product in the end that they're going to like. There's not the trial and error. There's not the focus group time. We're taking it to our community. We're asking them what they want. We have about 850 elves. That's the other feedback loop. Do you all like it? What do you think? It's a very young workforce population. We kind of are known as a Gen Z brand that's kind of stretching its wings now. And with that input, by the time we come to market, it's something that we almost know is going to be successful because people told us it would.
Okay, I want to go break down into that, because I think obviously your community, the most core community of all to any company, is going to be their employees, and then moving out to those sort of areas where you
the diehards,
the diehards, and then to the more normal humans that are going out there. So let's look at the employees first. So you say that they are elves, they fit it. Do you have a very specific way of recruiting to make sure that everyone is part of the culture? When you're getting, and obviously you talk about sub-generation there, but what is it that means that you can really trust what your team members say about your products?
I think the culture comes first. That's what, any skill can be learned, but you have to want to be an elf. And we are something called a high performance teamwork culture that includes passionate relationships, and that is really a part of the culture. We do fun things together. We talk about our families. The idea is to get to know the whole person, and you have to be willing to participate in that. That's number one. Number two is there is mutual accountability. I will call you out. You are supposed to call me out. And you have to buy into that. That's number two. And then you have to be willing to have some healthy conflict and getting rid of it in the moment and maybe staying up until midnight to figure it out. But then the next day you're working as colleagues with a clear path, aligned, and at least having heard each other. But all that can be done in a day. And that's the e.l.f. speed part of the culture. There's not this lingering, let's review it in 6 months and an after action, and that just doesn't happen. We deal with it then and there, and then we move on to the next great thing.
And so is e.l.f. speed one of your values? Like, what does that mean? Because that's, everyone's like, oh, we want to move fast, like we want high performance, but e.l.f. is one of the fastest growing companies in the space, like, and you obviously perform really high. What is it that you do that most people don't do?
Our promise is cost, quality, and speed. So that is built into actually our business operations framework. But our values, our purpose is to make the world a better place for every eye, lip, and face. And to do that, you have to be positive, inclusive, and accessible. Those are like the adjectives that we want our employees to describe themselves as. And it's what we want the community to see us as.
I love that. Okay. It's so abundantly clear that this is just like baked into the way that you are.
You eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But, you have to be willing, we're called elves. Our fans are called elfies.
Okay, I like that.
We've debated the word of slightly cult-like, but Marcus Collins, who we're here in Cannes with today, he told us that, that cult comes from culture. And with that definition in mind, I'm kind of okay with it.
And you can't spell culture without cult,
right.
So therefore it goes the other way too. And it's just who is Marcus Collins, for anyone who's not familiar with him?
Oh, he is a great professor at the University of Michigan who talks about brand and advocacy. And he's coming out with a book that e.l.f. might be a chapter in.
Curious.
Good soil.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're going to have to get Marcus in the pod, aren't we? So
yes.
He'll be the next one there. I have been following some of his stuff. He's really, really cool. So worth checking out. And then, so we looked at the employees. Like we're building out this kind of the pie chart of, or it's more like a target of community. At the heart of it, we've got your core employees. Then you've got your superfans. How do you involve them day to day in your operations of the business?
It is that co-creation mentality. So our now president, Corey Marchesotto, is a regular on our TikTok lives and very happy to, no prep, no questions, throw them at her. Tarang, our CEO, will occasionally join her, and they literally will look at the camera and say, what do you want next? And they're willing to take the advice, and they will turn around and put things into production. We just announced recently e.l.f. hair, and that was a direct result of the community asking for it. It totally new category for us. Took a little longer to develop because of it, but it was built the whole way with community input. Why aren't you in hair? You've democratized access to the best of beauty for makeup, for skin. Now we want hair, and so now they have hair.
And is there an example where you've actually had to make a hard decision that you thought was brilliant, but the community were like, no, this isn't the thing?
I actually think that came more in, we did have stores at one point in time, and part of our accessibility model is actually that we are sold at the Targets and the Walmarts and on Amazon. And so having our own stores actually siphoned off the accessibility of while you're grocery shopping or while you're at the mall with your family. So we closed the stores, and that was several years ago. But that was probably the hardest thing the company had to do, but it really didn't align with we want to meet you where you are. We were making you come to us.
So that's interesting because there is a bit of a trend with sort of beauty and fashion to almost obsess about those hubs, often where there is an office. It's London, New York, LA, and then everything's happening. Oh, we've got this event. It's only for influencers though. You're not allowed to come, and it's only in LA. So if you're in Arkansas and you're not an influencer,
that's
then
not us.
So how do you sort of see democratization? Are there anything that you guys do that's possibly a difficult call that most people would look at that's a bit unusual, but that is so in tune to the way that you operate?
We talk about selling in Dollar General, which truly serves what we would call beauty deserts. But there is a massive population in the U.S. who doesn't have access to these other stores, and not even access to a Walmart. But Dollar General, which is a key partner for us, and we show up for them, best of beauty, and why should you not get it just because you live in a rural area?
And what's Dollar General for anyone who's outside of the US?
Dollar General is truly, I mean, it's a dollar store. Things are priced $1, $5, $10. They're small retailers. They have a much smaller footprint than a big box store like a Walmart, but they are really serving rural America.
Love that. Okay, cool. So we're looking at the way that you've got that. It's not an exclusive.
No.
Lack of exclusivity which is
inclusive. That's what we are.
The whole vibe of that. And then let's look at that in more of a broader audience. Like, how do you sort of see community showing up in a digital perspective?
I think part of the model for our social, for example, is conversation. So it's all built around, again, not only just what do you want to see in products, but it is what do you want to see in our content. We think we're funny. I think our community thinks we're funny, that this doesn't have to be taken so seriously. We bring to life purpose initiatives through humor. We want to treat our community with respect, which actually means treating them as a whole person. You can be funny and purposeful and serious and smart and beautiful and confident all at once. And I think our community responds to because we're treating them with respect and respect they deserve.
And how does that work tactically, like day to day, to make sure that you're able to show up and be all of those things at the same time? Are you very iterative, or have you planned things out months and months in advance? Like, what's the day to day? And there's a wonderful documentary. If you've ever seen like the 6 Days to Air documentary about how they make South Park. It's fantastic because they don't plan anything until the week it is made, and they make the entire episode the week before they ship it, and they ship it on I think it was like the Wednesday night, and it goes live on the Thursday, and then they sit down on the Friday morning. They're like, so what are we going to do this week? and it's a documentary on the side of it, and you just see this incredible kind of creativity that comes from being on the spur of the moment, which I think is something which makes that such a fantastic show. And so I'm always fascinated about how people are able to marry being current, being just iterative to what they're doing previously, but also being kind of clued in with a solid plan.
So I'm sure a lot of companies have an ethos. We talk about it like on the daily. And a lot of our decisions go through that as kind of the metric. And it does allow us to move fast and reprioritize things based on that. From a purpose lens, for example, getting involved in a cause or taking a stand on something. It goes through, does it match our ethos? Do we have any authority in the space to talk about it? Mm-hmm. And then we'll delight our community. And if you've checked those three, it's kind of a go. We actually now have these Monday morning Sparks meetings, which is to talk about what happened over the weekend. More of a newsroom mentality, which I love. Mm-hmm. It's part of why I'm at e.l.f. And the idea that we want to jump into culture, I don't think we're seeking to drive it. We want to be a part of it. It's not, we're going to tell you the trends, or we're going to tell you what kind of entertainment you should be watching. We actually want to experience it with you in that moment.
Great. Okay, cool. So when you're looking at building a community and thinking about advocacy that drives that growth engine that has been so powerful for you, you've been there for 3 years, which probably at the sort of speed things are happening at e.l.f. is
I've seen a lot.
How old is the business, by the way?
22 years.
22 years, all right, amazing. Okay, so you've been there for these last 3 years. How have you started to sort of see the advocacy flywheel change in that time? Social has changed, a lot of things have kind of evolved. How have you sort of seen the way that you operate change?
I think what's interesting is the tactics have changed, but the way we operate really hasn't. So from a purpose lens, which leads to a lot of the advocacy, kind of what we stand for, when we do our annual impact report, for example, it is not a data sheet. It is actually intended every much for the consumer as it is for the raters and rankers of sustainability things. And in the past report, the whole thing was, what do you give an e.l.f. about? So we do use e.l.f. creatively in many statements. Anything is e.l.f.ing possible. And the campaign was give an e.l.f. And we turned to the community and said, what are the issues you care about? So in the same way with the product development, we know when we're getting involved in purpose advocacy, it aligns to what our community's values are. So animal rights turned up on there, LGBTQ rights showed up on there, women's empowerment showed up on there. And we actually held a community event in New York City, and people could come, and there was the ATM style machine, and you could vote, and we would put a deposit in for a charity that aligned to your own values. And there was no product involved. There might have been a great gift bag at the end, but that day wasn't about selling product. It was to remind the community that we're in this with you, whether you're in your bathroom putting on your lipstick or you want to stand up for animal rights, like, we're there.
And when you sort of think about the sort of a purpose piece with regards to other companies, again, like it's a similar thing. People say, well, it's fine for e.l.f. You know, you guys are a rocket ship, you're doing this, I couldn't possibly do that. Like, this isn't a new thing. This has been around for a long time. Like, do you have any advice for people that are trying to change their organizations from within if they don't potentially have this kind of lens?
I think it's knowing who you are and what you stand for, which for e.l.f., again, it goes back to that positivity, inclusivity, and accessibility. There are other great things you could do in the world. You could solve different problems, but you have to be passionate about it, and it has to really be who you are, how you show up internally, externally, your leaders, your new employees, your interns, all have to believe in it. And I think that when you have that, it doesn't feel like, okay, we're going to take a stand or we're going to become a cause company. It's innate. And the things that we've gotten involved in just in my 3 years are all general offshoots of the positivity, inclusivity, accessibility, but we've gone in so many different directions. There's women in sports. We work with Billie Jean King. We have the only female driver at Indy 500 is e.l.f. family. So we've gone that way. We've gone to an initiative called Change the Board Game, which actually had brought us to Cannes last year with a campaign called So Many Dicks. It's funny, but it also will make people remember that there are more men named Richard, Rick, or Dick on America's publicly traded corporate boards than entire groups of underrepresented people. And that advocacy continues. But we're not calling attention to the problem. We're trying to help solve it. We're training potential board members. We're hosting networking events with publicly traded board nom-gov committees and candidates. If you had told me we'd be doing that even when I joined, I don't think I would have foreseen that, but it came so naturally because we know who we are, we know what we stand for, and look, we can actually do it if we go that route.
How much do you think the zero distance piece has to do with that connectivity with the community means these decisions feel intuitive?
Everything. It really does, because it makes it feel like we're doing it together. You know, it is not a pet cause of somebody in the company. We know what the community cares about. We've asked them. And now, because we know that, we can put it into action. And then we ask for their help back. So the zero distance narrative really starts at the top. It's the only way it's going to work. But we practice what we preach. We have started the Zero Distance Substack, which instead of being a brand marketing tool, we actually, I'll say give the mic, but it's really like giving the keyboard over to other people who believe in what we do. And ever so often we'll have an e.l.f., we'll pen it. But our most recent one from an e.l.f. was somebody who works on the sustainability team and why social sustainability is as important as environmental. And she wrote about fair trade because it was important to her. Billie Jean has written one for us. The captain of the American Olympic hockey team wrote one for us. So it's sharing. Zero distance also means expanding, who the fam is.
How does that show up though? I mean, we talked about that. Then you've got the Substack, you've got the live, the sort of TikTok lives with the CEOs on. How does that show up for people day to day within the organization who don't necessarily have one of these master comms channels that you obviously control from your side of things? But like, how does this show up for others?
Well, if you were an employee, you can walk right up to Tarang's office, knock on the door, and say, "I have an idea." And this goes back to the culture of hiring, though. If you have an idea, you better be prepared to execute it. So we want people who bring the energy, and your job description doesn't matter. It is a piece of paper that gets onto LinkedIn. And we'll tell you in the interview process, like, who knows what you're going to do every day? But it could be you have a great idea and it's the next great thing.
And do you have an example of one of those?
Again, I'll go back to hair. That was a listening moment. And then somebody recognizing it and saying, I actually think we could do this. And great, here's like a little pet project, and go develop an incubator.
Brilliant. Which is the best way of getting these things moving. You mentioned the e.l.f. family. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that goes back to those passionate relationships and the taking of the time to spend together. We have offices in Oakland, California, LA, New York, London, India, and Shanghai. And you will see an executive presence from each. We have a small C-suite. There are 6 of them. They show up at all the offices every year and make sure that there's like breaking bread time. Mm-hmm. And it's not the high-tech version of we've got cool snacks. It is actually, let's sit at the table and have pizza.
Nice. No nap pods.
And the occasional glass of wine together.
This is brilliant, and it's so clear that the purpose, like one of the reasons why you scored so highly on the advocacy maturity score, which is clearly articulating your purpose, clearly articulating your values to everybody and everything that you do, is so clearly baked in for it. And it's like one of those things that people all over hearing this is saying, well, I wish I could do that. And so well, you kind of do have the option. It's like you can make this change from within. And if an organization doesn't want to change when you try it, you can always vote with your feet and go to an organization that does have a clear purpose behind it as well.
Right, exactly. On the employee side and on the consumer side, our mission is to make the best of beauty for every eye, lip, and face. That doesn't force every eye, lip, and face to choose us. And if there is something that you don't agree with, that's okay. And maybe there is another brand for you, but we want to make it open and make your choice. Thankfully, most people choose e.l.f.
Now, this might be a tricky one to answer, but do you have an example of a time or a few times that you potentially lost your way and then realized that you'd forgotten your core values and you brought them back again quickly?
I'm only there 3 years. I'm really only familiar with since Tarang joined in 2014. I do think that store example is the closest thing of like, no, when you're a makeup brand, this is what you do, and all the other ones do it, and I've seen them and they're pretty, and it actually didn't really align to, I think, whether or not it was the values of the company, at least the ethos.
Yeah.
And it was a hard decision, I know, for the leaders who had to make it, but it also reminded us of what we're supposed to do. And even the e.l.f. fam, we're deep into partnership with all of those retailers. It is not a competitive space. We have our retailers, together at things. We will have our agency partners come together. They work together. There is kind of a higher purpose calling that comes with e.l.f., but I don't think that has to be unique. I think that has to come with knowing who you are and what you stand for.
And do you have any examples of, it seems that you're such a generous company as well. Like, how do you try to show up in a generous way? Like, for your customers, for your employees? I just love to, because the correlation between generosity and advocacy is absolute. And you are one of the top advocacy companies. How does generosity sit into that?
Well, a great example is, so like most companies, we have a holiday giving campaign, and the companies will match. It is to any organization you want. So if I care about a food pantry in Vermont, which I do, that wouldn't be on a list for most organizations to match the funds to, but we have made it so that we will. And then Tarang and his wife Hirni, they also match personally every gift. So if I make a $50 donation to the small food pantry, which is a lot for them, it's actually $150.
Oh wow!
And that is for every employee. They will do this match for.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and that's emblematic of. It starts at the top, and it's not a grand gesture. We don't go to ribbon cuttings of one food pantry. We actually want all the teams to donate to what they care about.
Outside of the sort of the more sort of charitable side of things, how do you kind of show up in a generous way for your customers? Do you get products in people's hands? What's your ethos around sampling? I think these are often very highly correlated as well.
We want it in everybody's hand. I am walking around here with a bag full, handing out lip glosses to people who say they're interested in e.l.f. and haven't tried it. We see people getting sunburned here. The whole team has extra sunscreens in their bags and are giving them out. But I think it's the price accessibility. So 75% of the e.l.f. portfolio of products is $10 and under. And that's a really important part of who we are. We consider them prestige quality, the best of the best, sometimes even better. And the idea is that we're never going to make them out of reach. The idea is that you shouldn't have to make a choice. Beauty in the grand scheme of things is important, but it's not as important as feeding your family, getting health care. And so it shouldn't have to be a choice.
It's incredible. The correlation between guests on this show and willingness to give product away and the speed of growth in their business is also massive as well. Like, people will come on. I think a great example is Colette at the Inky List, another fantastic brand. And as soon as she came on, the first thing she said, she was like, "Oh, send your wife to this list. I want her to do a skincare thing and then get some product in his hands." I've got other people who are just like, what are these sizes for your team and things like that. It's because there is this desire to just get the world trying what you're trying to do. We're trying your stuff and experiencing what you do every single day. And it's really interesting that just one free gift, I believe the goodwill and the advocacy that drives is just exponential. I massively encourage every single brand to take a chunk. It doesn't have to be half, it could be just 5% of your amount of money that you put in Zuckerberg's pocket, and instead spend that on just getting product in people's hands, not the influencers, the people who are normal people, and then see what that does to your growth, because it's just such a powerful way of just getting that word of mouth wheel just flying a little bit faster.
Well, when you talked about the influencer events at the very beginning, I think of, so we have shown up at Indy, as I mentioned with Catherine Legg before. That is a population that beauty doesn't see normally, but there's a huge amount of women and daughters in the audience. And so for them to come and be able to experience e.l.f., we have a big activation, come get your lip oil, the idea is that oil cars, there's a little pun in there, and it's showing up at a place that nobody expects us. So you will not necessarily see e.l.f. with a big influencer activation, red carpets, things like that. It is the idea of bringing it into communities. One of my colleagues spends New Year's, most years, actually at a girls' high school wrestling tournament in Missouri, bringing e.l.f. and e.l.f. sponsorship and products to the largest gathering of high school girls wrestlers, which is actually one of the fastest growing high school sports.
Oh, really?
Yep. And those are the places you're going to find e.l.f.
Love it. Well, that's fantastic. Okay, I think I want to ask so many more questions, but I'm going to stop here because it's a very, very busy schedule for you here at Cannes. Just want to leave it. So here at the Cannes Lions Festival, what is it you're trying to find? What are you hoping to discover?
I think we're looking for like-minded brands. We do know that there is force in numbers. Going back to even Change a Board Game, we were the first to start this. we now have more than 400 coalition partners. They're individuals, they're other brands, they're nonprofits who want to join that mission. So we're not necessarily looking for change the board game recruits, but other like-minded brands that we can do this work with.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Well, I hope you do.
Me too.
Samantha, if anyone wants to find out more about you and about the work you're doing, where can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, of course. elfbeauty.com has not only information about all our brands, but really our purpose platform, that consumer-facing impact report. It will all be there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the show.